Hello and welcome everyone to the High Ground Podcast. I am super excited. This is episode 66. Yes, I know 65 isn't up. It's a long story. Don't worry about it. Today, we're just moving forward. Today, we are going to be talking about Asian representation in Star Wars. I have an awesome panel, and I'm excited to get into it and get started right here on the High Ground. Hello and welcome all of my guests here on the High Ground Podcast. I'm excited to talk. We got two first time people on, as well as my dyad Element 7, otherwise known as Pep. I want to get started by going around, having everyone introduce themselves, let us know who are you, where can we find your amazing content, and to kind of break the ice, you're a character in Star Wars. What era do you live in? What do you do? And what character we know is your best friend? Um, I'm going to start with Nick first on this one. You are the character. So like, if you, yeah, you're living in the Star Wars universe. Hang on one second. Some of the people in the chat are saying they're having trouble hearing you. Um, uh, Let me see here. Yeah, we all can. Let me. So can everyone in the chat? Can you hear all the other guests? Huh? But just me. That is not how it's supposed to be. But let me see if I. Uh, all right. Now try setting something.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you guys hear us?
Hi.
No one heard my terrible introduction, so that's good.
Get a do-over.
Yeah, I got a little do-over.
I'm looking at the levels, and it looks like they should be able to hear you.
Okay, good. Cool.
I just want to get confirmation real quick. What were you going to say, Pep?
Just go to the advanced audio properties and see if it's on track 1 as well. I think he might have changed it to do a local recording. Okay, I hear them in my end.
All right, cool. Cool.
Cool.
Fixed. Yay.
Alrighty. All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll have to sweeten that moment, but real quick, apologize, Nick. Would you mind carrying us through one more time to say who you are, where we can find your awesome content, and the answer to the question?
Right. I'm probably going to change it now that no one heard my terrible response. So
You do you.
I am Amazing Nikender. You can find me on TikTok. I talk a lot about pop culture, usually Marvel, as it's the most relevant to me now. But I talk about a lot of different things, a lot of different movies, a lot of different stuff that I find interest in.
Radiant Black. Read Radiant Black, everyone.
Absolutely. Radiant Black, personality trait of mine. And I said before the audio cut out that I'd probably live in like the prequel era, but I think I'd probably now, thinking about it a little bit more, wouldn't be able to ride an X-wing in that era, so I'd probably be in the oh my god, the actual,
Like the original trilogy era.
the original trilogy area, yeah, because probably after the fall of Darth Vader and all that,
Yeah.
where it's you get a little time of peace where
Could
everyone's
hang out
kind
with
of
Pedro
chill.
Pascal.
Yeah, you get to hang out with Pedro Pascal. But it's all like, it also just feels very like Western to me, and I feel like that would be a lot of fun to kind of explore. I'd probably be like a pilot. I don't have the gumption to be a bounty hunter or anything. I would definitely just be like I don't know, like a pilot in some kind of capacity, to explore the galaxy as much as possible. I don't want to be like a runner or something. I don't want to be like a carrier or anything like that, but something that would involve me traveling as much as possible. And then what was the rest of the questions? They were
No, that was pretty much it. It was
Okay.
it's the last one is who would be your best friend?
It would be a very young Poe Dameron. I love Poe Dameron. He's my favorite character, because he's just like this hotshot pilot, and that's really fun to see for me. Yeah, I think that's the answer I got for that.
Awesome. I will say, if you were in the prequel era, you could still fly a Z-95 Headhunter.
It's true.
And those are
Wide
pretty.
wing.
It's not an X-wing, but
Yeah.
they're pretty dope too. Awesome. How about you? Victoria?
Yes, I'm Victoria. I go by Victoria Organa. So obviously I love Star Wars. But that's on TikTok and Twitter, Instagram, most places you can find me. I post a lot about pop culture, media. I started off with a lot of Star Wars, but since Marvel got really big in 2021, I've been doing a lot of that content too.
Your
you can
Loki
also
stuff
find-
was awesome.
Yeah, thank you. I was gonna say you can also find myself and Nick on our own podcast tomorrow, Voices of Atlas, where we talk about like more of this diversity stuff and an Asian perspective in media, which is super cool. But to answer the question, I would be a character in the post-sequel era. So after the Rise of Skywalker, things are kind of calming down. Government's probably reforming around then. As much as I'd like to think I would be a Force user, realistically, I'd probably also be a pilot. I love driving. I love planes. I love spaceships. Like, that's why I love Star Wars, because it's space. But instead of, you were talking earlier before audio issues were discovered about squadrons. You like driving in the X-Wing. The A-Wing was my favorite. I love a good A-Wing, so that's probably what I'd fly. And my best friends would probably, I'd like to have Rose as one of my best friends because she's an engineer. She could also help me fix my craft, so I feel like that'd be a good little duo. Or Chewie, because he's the best pilot, co-pilot there is.
Yeah.
I think he just, be good help and good fun, so.
I mean, a life that literally means he's ride or die for you. So
He doesn't have to be alive. We could just be best buds.
Okay.
Let him go home to whoever, wherever.
Awesome. Real quick, I have Obi-Wan in the chat saying, Hi, Republic. I would want to be a Jedi. Camilla, Bodeko Wookie, which definitely check out Beings of the Galaxy podcast. It is awesome. You may hear some familiar voices, mine and Pep's on there. But she would be a holo journalist named Lanis Locke, who works at Beyond the Outer Rim HoloMag and runs a podcast called Beings of the Galaxy. So it all comes full circle there. X-Core Gamer Skills. I'd live after Endor, and if I couldn't be a Jedi, I'd be a mechanic. I try to make friends with Han and Chewie. Awesome. X-Core Gamer Skills, part of Conspiracy Cantina. Check them out. And St. Pat says is going to draw a character for Camilla, so I gotta check that out.
Nice.
But yeah, how about you, Pep? Element 7, tell us where we can find you, your awesome stuff, and who you would be in Star Wars.
Well, I'm Pep, and Element 7 on the interwebs. You can find me on TikTok at _Element7_. You can find me on YouTube.com/Element7S, number 7, letter S. I do Star Wars, and I also at the same time don't know a thing about Star Wars. I don't understand Star Wars, and I'm a filthy casual, and I must be new to Star Wars. But if you have questions about Star Wars, you can ask me, and I'll answer them. And I do host a podcast with Darth Chaco on Saturdays at 5 p.m. Pacific called Diet in the Force. We talk about all of the time-sensitive stuff, like new things that happen, new news that is announced of the week, and then we just hang out with the chat. Now I do have to reach out for some clarity on this question. Is this like a 1-to-1 insert character, or is this like, am I manifesting my ideal self?
You're living your best life. So yeah, go ahead and manifest.
I would actually be in the High Republic, under the tutelage of Orla Jareni.
Okay.
Because she's I love the concept of Wayseekers, and even though she is my master, I would be more like Wreath, and I would be like a scholarly knowledge holocron keeper archivist type of character. With that said, my bestie would probably be Wreath.
I could definitely see that, and unsurprisingly, my dad has largely chosen mine. But I could, but I feel like I could live in most eras. I would like to be a Jedi, or just I love to learn and to catalog and just dive deep into knowledge and explain things and stuff like that. And I have always had to, because of certain living situations, we'll say, you always had to know how to fight, but always wanted to seek peace. That's always been like a thing for me, and so I know that's kind of where I'm at. So awesome, love it, love to hear it. All right, so kind of going around, and by the way, this going forward will be conversational. I do call on someone to get started, but feel free to hop in if you guys want to talk. But I want to kind of put these two questions together. What is the theme that you take away from Star Wars, and what does Star Wars mean to you, and why is it important? Like, before we jump into the heavy topics, we'll get a feel for how you guys interact with the medium. For this one, I'll start with Pep.
So the theme that I get from Star Wars has always been family. From the first original trilogy to the prequel to the sequel, the underlying message has always been like family, whether it's blood bonds or friend bonds or any kind of bonds that matter, because the whole purpose of the rebellion and the Republic and then the Resistance was always to kind of maintain this sort of idealistic picture of what the galaxy meant to them, but it was always someone that was like selfish about what the galaxy meant to them, that kind of ruin things, for the lack of a better description. And George Lucas even like confirms this, like it was always about selfish versus selfless. And that's what it always comes down to, is that the dark side is selfish. And to be selfless is to kind of put yourself in a position to accept everyone and anyone as your family, without boundaries and without kind of like this binary, are you blood or are you not blood type of like criteria. And that's what Star Wars has always meant to me. So like it's always been family, and no matter who you are, where you come from, what your purpose is, it always has a profound impact on everyone else. And so like the collective good will always kind of be important to me. And that's like the message I get from a lot of Star Wars, including the comics and the books.
Awesome.
What's your favorite like piece of media that kind of like explores that? Like, which is there a specific film or like
anime?
Yeah.
Just in general, it's true. It all is. The Fast and the Furious.
Oh yeah.
How about you, Victoria?
Yeah, so like obviously to touch on Pep with family, that's at the core kind of what it means to me. I'll get into the themes that I take away in a little bit, but it's Star Wars, at least it's something I grew up with. It brought a lot of memories. It's like it meant family in a way of like, not through the themes of Star Wars, even though it's a lot of family, but it's just like to be able to spend time and enjoy this piece of media with my family, which is super special because it's so vast. There's so many things going on with it. Like, what's not to love about it? So like everyone in our family can go to the movie theaters for Christmas and see everything. But the themes I take away from Star Wars that makes me just really love it is like hope, and like sort of the world and bubble we live in is so much bigger than just us. Like there's this vast galaxy, and then the things that you do, even though we feel so small in it, like it matters, and it matters across the universe. Just doing a good deed or doing something just because it's right.
Yeah.
But also with that, I find like another one of the big themes I take away from Star Wars is like just balance. Not necessarily just light and dark. There's good and bad, and like, but you have to be accepting and willing both. Because like even like with Anakin, like it's his refusal and the Jedi being so strict in the one way of like being binary between good or bad is what kind of pulled him away. So like having this acceptance and moderation and balance within yourself is really important too, because Jedi and stuff are selfless and the Sith are selfish, but to exist and thrive in yourself you need to take a little bit of both, or else you won't put time for yourself first. So it's like, I don't know, those themes I carry with me every day.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you gotta, on an airplane, you gotta put your own mask on first. That's not, it's you gotta take care of yourself and love yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
I always imagine someone trying to put another person's mask on first, but then passing out in the process and just failing.
And then everyone dies, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, sometimes you have to take some time for yourself to help everyone else. So,
we got Bobby Perez who says, "Always trust your heart." This doesn't actually show the emoji, so it just says purple heart. X-Core Gamer Skill says, "There's more to inheritance than blood." Absolutely true. Julie Christine says to Pep, "Okay, Dominic Toretto." Had to be done. And got Lord Dagobert in the chat. I don't know if you can guess what he said, but Pep, can you guess what he says?
Let's go.
Let's go indeed. And Bobby also says Star Wars is redemption, which is very true. And I love that we can all pull different things from it. How about you, Nick?
I think for me, it's definitely just like balance. I know like they talk a lot about like what balance is, you know, in the clear cut of like what is light and dark. But the more I explore like the Star Wars universe, the more like diverse that kind of becomes, right? Because I think the Force is kind of used as a way to depict where someone stands, like morally, whether they're selfish or they're unselfish. And you kind of see that both like in extremes on both sides, like in the light and the dark, where someone is fully consumed by it, like Emperor Palpatine or Darth Vader, who like is fully onto the dark side. But that's like the journey you go on with like Anakin, like how he was convinced to join the Jedi and stuff like that. And then the more you think about it, right? We've all had that discussion. Like, are the Jedi really good people for what they're doing? Are they really peacekeeping? In times of the Clone Wars, they were generals, and it's like that doesn't really sound like a peacekeeper to me. Is the ideology of being a good person really aligned with being a Jedi? Is it wrong to fall in love as a person, and that be a driving motivation to what you do? That's something you see along the lines of like a dark force user. So it's like it's the more you think about that question of like, oh, what is truly balance? Is it just there's a right and there's a wrong, or is it a lot more complicated than that? And it really opens up that question for me. And then the characters that kind of not struggle but choose to follow like the path to understand both sides is the most compelling to me. Ahsoka Tano is obviously like the one that comes to mind, who's like questioning the Jedi Order all the way through the entirety of the Clone Wars. And it's like with good reason. She brings up a lot of good points. It's like, why are we doing this? Why are we in times of war? She met the they're not the Resistance, the Trade Federation. Yeah. And she understands like how they are as people. And that like enlightens you a little bit. That enlightened me a little bit of understanding what, it's not as clear cut all the time, right? And yes, we do have these depictions of like red is bad, blue and green is good. But yeah, the deeper you delve into it, the more compelling and more complicated it can be. And I think that's really important, that sometimes life doesn't always have a right and a wrong answer, a good and a bad person. Sometimes your good actions might be perceived terribly, or your terrible actions might be perceived as good for someone else. And it's just really interesting to kind of see that point of view expressed in Star Wars.
I think that's why a lot of the stories deal with redemption, right? Because it's not always just an outward evil. It's always someone that started like from like they're good, and then with good intentions, and then kind of drove themselves into that corner, and then became that evil. Of course, Palpatine always is, like, for simplicity's sake, for narrative purposes, he is the de facto evil.
Yeah.
But Anakin being Vader is just like the perfect example of like, this person wasn't, outwardly evil. He started off with good intentions, and he started off like pure, and then circumstances led him to be that evil. And that's why redemption is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how I love how you put it, because well, real quick, I do want to shout out Jedi Master DePaul. Thank you for dropping love. I always appreciate you. The other half of Conspiracy Cantina, they're a lot of fun. We've visited on that podcast before, and they're just all the best. By the way, I love this Star Wars community. It's like the best of any community. It's just super positive. Everyone's super chill. It's awesome. But real quick, what I was saying is that I've mostly lost what I was going to say. Damn. I knew I shouldn't have gone off. Just about how, not everything is good or bad. There's something I think about in the book Master and Apprentice, where Qui-Gon brings up the slavery that's in the galaxy. Like, we need to do something about this. And Yoda tells him and explains, do you know how much power or influence we would need in order to make that a galaxy-wide change? And that was something I've never thought about before, because we as a fan base, we simplify it. But, like, would that require the Jedi pass legislation? What do they impose? Is that them getting more involved politically, less involved? And I'm not saying that slavery is good. Obviously, it's not. And I do think they should have done more to stop it. But these things always, there's always a lot more moving pieces. But since this is media meant to be consumed by younger people, you have Palpatine as like the backstop for evil. Like, yeah, he's just bad. But oftentimes the villain of one story is the victim of another story, which is really interesting. For me, my big takeaway when it comes to Star Wars is I always think about how you never trample the little people. All the empires are toppled by the people who are overlooked. These people that are pushed into the margins of society, and even more than that, like droids. Droids are beneath people's notice. Droids screwed over the Empire and the First Order. Ewoks, not a threat, right? Tiny little bears. No, that bear is stronger than a human and knows how to use weapons and has opposable thumbs and eats human flesh. That is terrifying. Play Ewok Hunt and come back at me. So that's kind of my takeaway is don't look over people. Don't feel that you are above others, because it's humility that really wins over in the end.
I think that's some of my favorite stories from the Clone Wars. Is just like the ones that don't involve Jedi, the ones that are a little bit more focused on like clones. I think my favorite one, I forget the name of the episode, but it's like a clone was like missing and he forgot who he was and he was like a fry cook.
Oh yeah, Gregor,
yeah.
Oh.
And you find out he is this badass clone trooper. Like a Jedi comes in and like says like, hey man, you're supposed to be this, but it's really more about him and like his coming to understanding like who he is. And that's like way more interesting to me, finding out like stories like that exist in the universe that aren't always directly connected to Jedi or Sith or Force wield users. Those are the stories I like hearing about a lot.
Yeah, same. Shout out to our boy Josh Maysal Windu. Thank you so much for the donation. Victory celebration all day, DePaul. There's Jedi Master DePaul is Yub Nub for life. I go back and forth. The bass line for Yub Nub slaps as a musician. Go back and check it out. It's surprisingly funky. It's St. Pat says deadly teddy bears for the win, and it's always droids that come in clutch. Harris Production says Ewok Hunt is scary, especially with Chaco. I played Luke over at Podwan's podcast will every now and then stream some games, so I joined them and we played some Ewok Hunt. It was horrifying. That game is quite scary.
Should play some survival horrors and stream it for Halloween.
Can't do.
Dude, me too. I can't do that. Forget that. Okay. The scariest movie I saw was Haunted Mansion back like years ago.
I swear to God, I don't know. It was a couple of years ago. I decided to stream Slender Man.
Oh my goodness.
And I never cursed so much in my life. I never said balls so many times in my life.
Man.
Yeah. No, like someone reached out and was like, "Hey, you want to do like an unboxing for like this scary movie that's coming out?" I was like, "No, thank you. No, I'm good."
But really quickly on your thing about don't push the small people. I mean, it's the reason why the term martyr exists, and a great quote from Isaac Asimov. Creating martyrs of dissidents is a risky enterprise. And it's basically what you just said. Don't push the small people.
It's so true, and that's how you get revolutions.
Yes.
All right, now we've kind of got everyone's feels for it and everyone's preferences. All right, we jump into the subject at hand, right? We're going to talk about Asian representation. Now, obviously, I am not part of the Asian community. I guess it's not technically obvious, but so I've kind of sent you guys some of the questions.
Mhm.
If there's more stuff that you want to add, if there's stuff that you want to change, if there is more points you want to bring out, feel free to do it, because I don't have the wherewithal to ask all the proper
Right,
questions,
yeah.
But, but how would seeing yourself, or people like you represented, like, what would that mean to you, and why is representation important? And I'll go to Nick first.
I mean, like, consuming media as a kid, right? Like, you always kind of look, without even knowing, you're like looking for yourself constantly, and how you relate to the character as best as you can. And sometimes it does boil down to just like, oh, that guy looks like me, and I feel like if that guy looks like me, then I can do what that guy can do, or I can do what that person can do. So like with myself growing up, I'm a mixed individual. I'm Latino and Filipino. It feels like, well, I'm never going to get that ever. So I should probably just settle for what I got. And a lot of people feel that way. A lot of people feel like, oh, well, I'm never going to see myself on the big screen. So that's something I shouldn't be looking for. And me and Victoria have talked about this because Shang-Chi did release, and how we felt when we first saw that. And it was like an enlightening moment for both of us, right? I didn't even understand what I was watching through the film until it was over. And I was living in some kind of like denial state. I was like, there's no way that this movie exists where the main character is Asian. There's no way. I was expecting like Danny Rand to show up and take the seat from Shang-Chi, because I was so conditioned to believe like no one that looks like me can have this spot right now. But to have that is like really important, right? And that's for me as an adult, that's crazy. For someone who's like a child, for someone who doesn't understand like how important that can be to them, it's going to make them for the rest of their life. They're going to live off that energy and carry it forward, right? And I mean, all of us, me, Victoria, Element 7, like we all just have that energy that when we find something that we really enjoy, we carry it through with us forever, right? We love Star Wars, we love Marvel, and we talk about it because it's important, right? Because we want more of those moments to happen, not just for ourselves but for other people, and that's a big deal for everybody, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, go for it, Victoria.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, yeah, for sure. It's just like at this point, like I'm in my mid-20s and stuff. I'm just like, I feel like I'm getting old, to the point to like where seeing this stuff and like seeing myself in media, like it's just as important now. But like I'm past like those formative years, and I'm just like, this would be super freaking cool. Like if someone like me had this when I was like 4, 5, like the first time when I was like saw Star Wars and stuff, I was like, I latched on to Padme because like, she's like the only woman character in that movie, really. Seeing the Phantom Menace and stuff, but I was just like, that would have been so cool. Like, cool. I like even like seeing my brother's reaction to Shang-Chi, because like I don't as much, like we look the same, but I don't think he's given as much thought into like this representation to media stuff. And he's just like, I had to like keep on like picking my jaw up off the floor. He's just like, I love Star Wars, I love Marvel, I love everything. And it's just like, but I didn't realize I was missing such a big part of me. And I'm just like, this makes me sad that like we were both in our 20s when we figured this out. Like he's in his later 20s and I only figured this out a few years ago. Like I was just like, there's like one movie, it was like To All the Boys I Loved Before, like they had like a mixed Laura Jean is mixed white and I think Chinese, or I forget what her other mix is, but I'm like, I'm white and Chinese. I can exist in media.
Yeah.
So it was like such a turning point. I'm just like, I shouldn't have to realize this and have settled just for, well, any one who's not a guy. I
Mhm.
could be. Like,
Yeah.
it was just mind blowing. And I guess like to add on to that a little bit more too is seeing The Last Jedi with Rose, and Rose gets a lot of shit, but
Mhm.
it was so special because like after two, I know Chaco, you let me the book of Rose and her sister as well, and I was able to read through that, and I'm just like, she looks like me. Not, I mean, obviously not fully. I'm mixed. And Kelly Marie Tran isn't, but like, she looks like me. She's part of the Star Wars galaxy. She's an engineer. I'm an engineer. Like, I was so seen. I'm just like, this is so good. But then on the other hand, it's just like, okay, then like the such negative press and fan
Oh, yeah.
reaction to it was
That was a bad time.
disappointing. But it continues to be. But you know, I've learned that they just are. I can't
period is-
really change their mind sometimes if they have a strong bias, but I'll live unapologetically and take up the space because why wouldn't there be Asians in Star Wars, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the biggest thing about seeing yourself or seeing your someone like you represented in media is just to know that you matter,
Mhm.
that you exist in the world. And being Filipino, I grew up on the East Coast, and I was either Chinese or Japanese. No one gave a crap about what I was. I would say I was Filipino. I was like, what is that? And so like you grow up thinking that the only Asians that matter are Chinese and Japanese. And then, you know, in popular media, you want to see your culture celebrated. You want to share your culture as much as possible. So when I see like Anthony Bourdain or like these high level food critics doing episodes in the Philippines, I'm super proud for it. I'm proud to see my culture in the eyes of popular media. And so like seeing Asians or seeing a Filipino, um shout out to Ned in Spider-Man.
Mhm.
Just seeing those people is like, yo, we're being recognized. Like this isn't a thing. Like we're not the quote unquote Mexicans of Asia anymore. We're Asians. It's not just Chinese and Japanese. And so like that's the most important thing, because every time I see like whenever, especially in like real life, when people are talking about how their favorite cuisine is Filipino food and they just
So
tasted
good.
this Filipino
Which is
food.
delicious.
So
Yeah.
good.
It's
Oh yeah.
it's absolutely delicious. It looks awful. It's delicious.
Listen, presentation's not a priority in the Filipino cuisine, but it'll knock your socks off in terms of taste and flavor.
Real
but,
quick,
like-
my wife works at the hospital, and she comes home really excited one day, and she's like, "I got in with the Filipinos." Just because they always bring food, and she's like bringing me lumpia, and I'm like, it's a good stuff. But yeah, keep going, Pep.
Oh well, no, that was kind of like the end of my thoughts there. It's just like, aside from seeing characters in Star Wars and characters in media, it's like you see yourself in the life that you lived on screen in popular media, and then it makes you feel like you mattered to the world, and that your experience and where you came from, your heritage, isn't just something that's a part of you. It's part of the world, right? And so like when people have like when they have lumpia for the first time and they're like, oh man, this is amazing, I'm like, that's Filipino right there. It's the same thing as like a parent going to like a soccer game. It's like, that's my son, you know. It's a part of you that's out there that's making waves. Wow, I didn't even prepare this, but speaking of waves, like Wave, Agents of Atlas, that was an amazing like reveal to see. Now I haven't read it yet, but I plan to. But it was awesome to find out that there was a Filipino superhero.
And Eddie Lakbayani. She's the new Captain America.
Captain America.
Ooh,
Issue number
okay.
4. She is fantastic.
I have to read that now.
It's read the United States Captain America run. It's really good. And yeah, her being introduced was such a big deal for me. I'm sorry, I'm not like taking this as a Marvel podcast, but her being introduced was a big deal for me and my fiance because we're both Filipino. And that means so much to us. You know, that means the world to us, that we get to see ourselves represented. Even if these characters don't exist, right? Like, our identities are real things, and that's something we strive to look for. And I always run into this argument, right? I think Darth Chaco, you've talked about this. It's like, well, races don't exist in space. Races don't exist in Star Wars. They're just people. Or why does it have to matter if they're Asian or black or anything? It is important. Like, yeah, okay, there's no Asia in space. That doesn't mean people don't look like me. This is media that's made on Earth by people who exist. If that's true, then people can look like whatever they want. So what's the problem with them looking Asian, them looking Latino? We just want that. If it's no difference, then what's the big deal for asking for it?
Yeah, and that's
It's very circular.
Yeah.
Because if there's no race in space, then why does it have to be white people?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna
called
say that
white
too.
people,
I was just like, it's not always like, oh, the representation, like seeing yourself. It's just like not seeing yourself. It's just like,
Yeah.
you can have like all these colors of Twi'leks, and you guys are okay with that.
Yeah.
But as soon as you have a different shade of human, it all goes to shit. And it's just like, then, so it's like, okay, races don't.
No, it's
exist.
forced.
Okay,
It's
so why are
forced.
you
It's forced.
being
It's
racist?
absolutely forced.
Like,
White characters, black, forced diversity. I don't understand that at all.
And real quick, I want to bring out Scheming for Sriracha in the chat says, it really hits home if one day you have a kid and they recognize it. I'll never forget my daughter watching Spider-Verse, and when Penny shows up on screen, she says, "That's me."
Oh,
Oh
that's
man.
adorable.
Isn't that like...
that's,
Die.
I had this weird moment because, again, I'm older, so I thought I was past needing to see this type of thing, but I saw a commercial for Black Panther where like the two main kids in the commercial where it was a black boy and girl, and there was a white kid that was playing with them who also had like Shuri's things, and I almost cried. Like, it's like, why is this hitting me so hard?
Yeah.
Because we've only ever been sidekicks.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, to bring up the MCU, every MCU character has a
Now
black
Marvel
sidekick.
podcast.
so like that,
You know?
in Phase 4, they've been sprinkling in the Asian side character, you know?
No, it's true. But to see that I can be the main character, and whether or not like it's always mattered because you can, as far back as I can remember as a child, I remember watching Doug and I look at Skeeter, I'm like, oh, he's black.
Yeah.
Why did I do that? Everyone did that.
Yeah.
Watch back Dragon Ball Z. Piccolo, he's black.
Mhm.
For sure. There's no, and everyone did that separately. and it's because, like you said, not only do we want to see ourselves and we will instinctively look for ourselves, but it hurts when we don't see anything like us.
Mhm.
And a lot of these shows, I honestly think that stuff like Star Wars and, Marvel and comic books are the most important media, because that's where a lot of younger people, kids get lessons in morality, and helps kind of frame certain things in their mind. And to never see a person of color, like, it affects both people on both sides, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And they're all just global universe expanding stories too. Like,
Yeah, they're all white. That's
and
crazy.
they're all white and they're all in America.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's weird. That's so strange.
Like,
I
I
mean-
can look out my window and I can see a lot of not white people,
people.
in America right now. So I'm like, something's not adding up.
You're right. Yeah.
I mean, even if we're attacking this from the fictitious angle, fiction has always been, derivative of life, of our
Right.
world. Why do we have Twi'leks? Why do we have all of these different aliens who still have human, like physiologically human bodies and anatomies that are familiar to us because they're derivative of how we see ourselves? Oh, it's just a human, but with Leku. So, like, everything, including the aliens, comes down to like how the world is to us. And so if we don't see a world that is kind of analogous to what we see in real life, then it kind of is like a disconnect in terms of narrative.
This is a little bit of like relevant news, but we also we also saw the poster for the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, I really like how Boba Fett, his actor, God, I forget his name, but he is of Pacific Islander origin. So he incorporates that in the Mandalorian, where he uses weapons from his culture. He has like these drapes. I think he adds on to his armor that kind of is more aligned with like his culture, and I think that's cool. And everyone really loved it, right? But like looking into it, it adds to his character and it makes him just like way cooler. And it's nice to see that, you know, like, yeah, these things don't exist in the realm of Star Wars, but they exist to people, and especially like to the actor, and he's bringing that to the character, and that's always like great to see, because again, like, someone's gonna look at that and be like, that's who I am.
Culture.
Yeah, I recognize that.
It's me, and that elevates his character like way beyond what it was before, and it feels real, you know. And that's why we watch these stories. It doesn't matter if they're in space long time ago, they still matter.
And I would argue that the realism in there is the most important part, because it helps you suss out, like, you know, I mean, the Empire doesn't exist. It's based off of stuff that existed, you know?
Yeah.
But I love how, you know, Obi-Wan says, in the chat says, the only thing forced about the diversity in Star Wars is the lack of it.
Yeah, that's true.
And then Michael Hubbard, you know, it says, unrelated but similar story. Let me bring it up. I showed my Star Wars to my 8-year-old niece. When we got to the sequels and met Rey, she said, "Girls can be Jedi?" Like, it was just,
Important. So important.
Yeah, it's just, it's right there. But Nick, you were already touching on it. The next question was, you know, why does it matter? Why does race or ethnicity matter? Shouldn't it all just go to the best actor? You know,
God. See, every time I get presented with that question, it's like, oh, shouldn't it go to the best actor? And it's like, okay, well, who did the casting for it then? How many people did they ask? How many people of color did they ask? How many opportunities did they give to those people? And then it's like, well, I don't know the answer to that. And I was like, well, okay, then you can't really just say that it's the best actor, because if all of the people who tried out for the role was all white, it doesn't really matter who the best actor was, because then no equal opportunity was given to people of color, people of different backgrounds. So that question is just like up in the air forever, because it never gets answered properly. But yeah, it's just like a frustrating thing to deal with.
And also, if that's the case, you know, there's so many times where a person of color is in a role or in some, and people will call that forced diversity, and you're like, how do you know that they weren't the best, had the best, you know, audition for it? You know, like, I heard that with the terrible Fantastic Four movie, Fan Four Stick. And when Michael B. Jordan was cast, I'm like, you're trying to tell me you don't think Michael B. Jordan was not the best audition there? You sure? Come on, man.
But like, just to gotta go meta on this, like, what is your metric for best actor to begin with? Because if we're talking about like a certain ethnicity that's being represented on screen, you kind of have to think about who is going to give the best acting performance, the one who's familiar with that experience or the one who's emulating that, like Finn Jones in Danny Rand, who is emulating martial arts, versus like my pick for Danny Rand, which is Daniel Wu in Into the Badlands, who lived martial arts, lived that culture and understands it, but he speaks really good English and he's a good actor. It's all about kind of like finding that experience, whether it's the Black experience, the Asian experience. You cannot get that from just someone who is a good actor. Like, if you're playing an Asian, namely Filipino, because I'm Filipino, if you're playing a Filipino, you better be damn well versed in Filipino culture to give that performance, because I don't want people like claiming to be the best actor for the role and saying Lechon instead of Lechon. or being authentic with the Filipino experience. So it's all about like being authentic to that experience. So whether or not they're the best actor, I think the best experience or the best performance comes from the person who is most familiar with that experience.
Yeah, and I wanted to add too, because I am all too familiar with this question, like, because it's not just the film industry. I work in tech, and then sometimes tech bros they'll be like, well, they only hired you because you're a girl, and like they're trying to get those diversity points. Be like, you're like, they should just hire the best person. So the same argument is ensues, and it's just like, walk me through that. So you're implying that no one, or in that case, no woman, or if they're casting an Asian person, a Black person, whoever, you're saying that that entire population has no talent.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like to meet that level. It's just like you're not looking hard enough, and then you'd be like, well, you're forcing it.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, it's not forced, but like you kind of have to you have to make way and make the effort to cast the right people. Because if you just say, well, there just wasn't the right person and they didn't perform as well, did you only get one person of color and like 10 white people to audition? Like you have to really put out the casting calls and the efforts and like into it. Like you have to really try to reach and write these characters too, because a lot of times people are like, well, they were originally a white character in the books or the comics or whatever, but like you can like add to it. Like it's our world isn't just white. But like one of my favorite stories too recently was with the Shang-Chi casting. Mungar, she played Xialing. She didn't even really know she was auditioning for a Marvel movie. They just put out like, you need to be able to speak English, speak Mandarin, and like do martial arts and stuff, and got a movie for you. And but like they at least in that case, they put out the effort. They really try to seek somebody with authentic experience, as you were saying, Pap, too. Like it's like, and then you will find the talent there. You just have to search in the right places. You have to do an extra step. You have to put in the effort.
Mm-hmm.
Some people say that's forced, but like, is it? It seems pretty forced to have only one race in like, there are only white people in these fictional universes. Seems kind of lazy on the casting part.
It's only forced if what they're used to is nothing like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's always like the idea of like what is forced. It's like obviously this whole thing is these companies are trying to make money. Obviously, any decision is like a conscious decision, right?
Yeah.
And it's just the lack of recognition for where you should be putting your attention to certain things, right? Like, I think the big like in like relation to Star Wars, like Poe Dameron, he is my favorite character, right? But they made him a spice runner. Did no one like conscious? Yeah, like why did they make him a spice runner? As like that's cool.
And only the last movie too.
Yeah, and it's like weird. It's like why?
And then they changed his name to Hector for some reason. I don't know. It's weird.
It was just like that might seem like that seems like a thing that like someone overlooked because they weren't culturally aware of what that could mean for the representation in this movie, and like neglecting that is also just as bad as not including proper representation.
Yeah, and I think I want to add quickly to that.
Go ahead.
We're talking a lot about like the actors we see on screen, but where we need to put a lot more effort is in the behind the scenes.
That's
casting rooms, directors, writers, everything. Because they wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, there should have been a Latino guy in that writing room. Like, I don't know, that seems kind of weird because that's obviously what everyone thought. Like me being Latino, like as soon as that happened, I was like, I don't like that. That seems weird. I mean, I get it, like he needs like a pilot background, but I don't like that. That seems so. You could have done a lot of different things other than being a spice runner.
That's great.
That goes hand in hand with the Asian experience or the Black experience. Having those writers there, knowing that experience, you can't have a white guy write for the Asian experience and have Asian actors acting that writing. It's like, no, this isn't true. There's no single experience either, but like having those people in the writer's room will give the best example of that experience versus a white guy who is fetishizing that experience.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I mean we all talk about and we write what we know, and
Mhm.
so just like you said, if it, I bet money that the whoever made that decision didn't think about it like that,
Yeah.
but there's also a sort of bias there of like if at an airport when they do random checks, certain
Oh,
people
man.
get checked more than others, and they may think that they're choosing randomly, but there's some an
Mhm.
obvious
Bias is
bias
always-
that's happening, and
Yeah.
Everyone has
you know,
biases too.
Everyone
You just
has
have to
biases.
be bold enough or confident enough to like admit that you might not see everything because you do have biases. Like if you grow up in a certain neighborhood, certain things in a certain way around all the same types of people, you're gonna have biases, and that's okay. Just put
But
in
you
the
have to
effort
be
to
being
I mean,
unlearn
self-aware.
them.
And
Finn didn't have anyone. John Boyega got on site, and they didn't have anyone that knew how to cut black hair.
Mhm.
And no one ever thought about that.
yeah,
And
that's
you would,
crazy because like I didn't know that. That's insane to hear.
uh, but that's just like this a part of these cascading of effects where if you want to become a barber and you need to learn how to cut different types of hair, black hair isn't included with that.
Mhm.
And then they
Mhm.
hire people to do makeup and stuff, and
They don't
They-
have the right makeup shades because they don't do that. And like I've seen after like John Boyega like spoke out about this, like you get a lot more black actors and actresses talking about it, and they're just like, yeah, or like, even models too. Like I have to come and bring my own makeup and my own shades to these professionals, and they'll just leave it to me when everybody else gets their hair and makeup done. It's just like that's really screwed up to keep swearing out of the way, but like it's
And like addressing that neglect that you have is also like really important. Like as an artist, I understand like I want to draw people with different skin tones, different backgrounds, right? I have to understand that if I don't know how to draw somebody who's represented correctly, it's going to be a bad time. Like I'm going to offend somebody. So like making sure I understand my own biases and adjusting it and making the effort to learn from them is important because reading a lot of comic books, it's important that we want representation in comic books. We want them to look proper and make sure that we're not offending anybody. Artists, me as an artist again is constantly learning how do I implement representing people and not pushing so far to just like offend anyone. You need to address like where your issues are internally and in the industry. Like, yeah, that is behind the scenes, like having not enough people of color, having not enough people with backgrounds being associated with the production process is obvious when you get the final result, because then you do get those issues where an idea is neglected or someone didn't think about how that might offend somebody. It's clear and people definitely see it.
yeah, absolutely. Well, moving forward, in regards to Star Wars, how has the representation been so far? And just to get started, I feel like the reason we keep mentioning Marvel and stuff is because there's just not enough examples.
It's really it's hard. Yeah, I mean, I like Denny Yen. He's my favorite actor, like from the Ip Man series, obviously.
Mhm.
But like him being in Star Wars, I thought he would just be a bigger deal than he was. And as much as I liked this character, I just felt like he felt into like this very deep stereotype that I just didn't like. It didn't sit well with me. As much as I love Denny Yen and he plays that role well, it's just like he's just the wise old man who says something out of a fortune cookie every two minutes, and
Yeah,
and that's
he was
not
the
fun.
Kung Fu monk, basically.
Yeah,
Kung
exactly.
Fu Monk, the blind fighter.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, that's cool, like on paper, but then like in comparison to the rest of the cast, it was just like, well, he's just a stereotype, and well, I got issues with Rogue One, but whatever.
I mean, so I think
real quick, Scheming First Roger says, for example, the optics of constantly reminding the viewer that Finn was a janitor kind of bugged me, and and then it just hit me like, so Finn's a janitor, Poe's a spice runner, and Rey is essentially a princess, or the related to the previous Supreme Chancellor.
Mhm.
Kylo Ren is literally a prince.
Mhm.
I don't know. It's
More
just
fantasy
it's
than I
just,
think.
it's just funny. But go ahead, Pep.
I think it's definitely gotten better. The only representation we had of Star Wars was Nemoidians, and that was by implication only.
Yeah.
Okay,
That hurts.
Stereotypes.
our
Yeah.
the
It hurts.
the Asians
Oh, God.
were the green aliens who were like, "Where are the Droidekas?" And they weren't even good accents either.
Yeah.
But we
There
all
wasn't even
we all
Asian
heard
people
it.
in it.
Yeah.
We all heard it, and we were like, "Is that supposed to be an Asian accent?" And then we have like Fennec Shand, Rose, Paige. Like it has gotten better, but I think where it needs to go from here is like deeper into the characters themselves, right? We don't just want to see them. Like I want to see. Not to go. We're going back to Marvel again. I want to see. I want to see Peter go to like Ned's home and like have some food with his like Lola or something,
Yeah.
and be in that like environment. We need that kind of representation too. Like we can't just like it doesn't have to be a Benetton ad. We have to see characters in their environments showing that environment and culture. And even though like there is no like Asian in Star Wars, like if we went back to like Hayes with like Rose and Paige in like some kind of like animated show and saw their culture there, however they would portray it, it still would be very valuable to see that versus just having them as Asians in the Resistance. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I just want to answer that too. Is like, I think we're getting better in Star Wars, not to the same amount of effort that Marvel's been putting in, but we've had slightly less projects come out all at once for that. But like, seeing the sequels is a lot better than the prequels, and because we only had the Nemoidians, and in the original trilogy you only had one Asian woman in a remastered version that they filmed see later for like the that Cantina song. They brought her in as a Twi'lek, and it's just like that was filmed after like 10 at least 20 years after that. But like we've been getting better, but where it's been probably best, and I haven't consumed all of the High Republic content yet because there's a lot. We're getting a lot of different types of representation there, which is really good. It's got a lot of material to be there, but we haven't really had that experience on screen yet. And for the characters that we've had, we've mentioned like different stereotypes that are still sneaking their way in, but it's like a matter too of they're also not really supporting the actors too. Because okay, cool, we have Rose, she's a caring engineer, she's just like one of the little guys, like at like the heart of she's basically a core of what the Resistance is like she has hope, she wants to do better for the world, even if it's just her small part, and but other planets like hers like doesn't kind of get left in the dust or taken over. But then, just because bad fan reaction, because they're like, "Oh, why is Rose here?" Basically, just completely cut out of the Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah,
it's just like
that sucks.
You're getting there. You were so close, but then you shy away, and for why?
And the worst part is like people were like, "Oh, we don't like." It's not that she's Asian that we don't like Rose. We just don't like her as a character. And I was like, okay, but like she kind of represented a big part of what the Resistance was doing, and you could have inserted technically any character, yeah, sure, but what was wrong with her specifically? Why did we bully her? Why did we bully her actor? That's what was terrible. It's like, what was that part didn't sit with me. You can criticize the series, sure, I'm all for that, but
you don't have to like every character either.
But to go out of your way to bully an actor out of a role, it just seems crazy.
When her character is just literally a kind person who cares about animals and people.
I didn't understand, and I still ask people like, what did she do? And they're like, oh, it's so much worse than Jar Jar, and they're like,
She
okay,
took
but
up too much screen time. I wanted to see lightsabers go click clack against each other.
Tired of Jedi, man. I'm so tired of Jedi.
You're Finn. You're the hero of the Resistance. Oh man, this woman. I don't understand.
I don't like it when they speak.
yeah,
Oh man.
I legitimately like, and I cringe when you guys mentioned the Neimoidians. I actually had a discussion about this with someone. They're like, "What? There's plenty of black people. You had Stasa Lee, and like, no, you can't just you can't just put like." You can't only hire black people to be aliens,
Right.
like it's so and legitimately Adigalia and Stasa Lee, among with some other characters, only became two characters after they realized that they don't look alike. They filmed both. They had a character in the Phantom Menace. They brought in a different person to be that same character, and in post they're like, they don't look anything alike.
I don't know.
Surprisingly,
They're cousins or whatever. That
people
doesn't
of
matter.
color aren't the same or replaceable. Like, I
mean,
just pull another one out.
Mace
Like,
Windu isn't even a Coruscanti human. He's an alien. He's from Horde Call. So even like, oh man, like the white people are on Coruscant, and then like all the other like ethnicities are of a distant planet. Oh my gosh.
and then people think there's no races or ethnic
You know what's
Star Wars if
what's
they put them on different planets.
Yeah. What's interesting is the more I'm not well versed in the races of Star Wars. You guys said it like a million times, and I kept it in my head. The Asian coded aliens, right? Everyone's chill with having Asian coded aliens for the sake of their entertainment. But the moment we just want an Asian actor in there, they're like, no. It's like, oh, but you're cool with having an Asian coded character just to say some funny lines in a funny way. Like, yeah, we're cool with that.
Jar Jar too is
Yeah.
very much
Jar
a
Jar's-
walking stereotype.
Yeah.
Not Irie.
That one. Ew.
I mean, there was a lot of like backlash, or not backlash. There was a lot of like, ire from that side of the fandom for people saying that Ahsoka was black coded too. Like,
Right. Yeah.
what's so wrong with that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
people are so upset, and it's just like
She's black coded, and then what is it? But she has like indigenous roots in or like indigenous like lifestyle in Clone Wars. But I think that's fine, because it's like you can, again, as people of color, with different backgrounds, we look for things that we latch onto, and there's nothing wrong with that because it's a shared experience. So it's really weird when people get upset about stuff like that. I
yeah.
can't comprehend it.
I remember that post. Like, the girl said Ahsoka Tano was black, and people got super pissed. And they're like, "Well, you have Rosario Dawson." They're like, "But she's Hispanic," and you're like, "But she's black."
Yeah, she's definitely.
what is
You can be
what is your
both.
argument here?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's always kind of makes me laugh. Well, okay, so, and then also, and I stitched your video saying you wanted to see an Asian Jedi,
Mhm.
and I showed you one.
Oh, that was you.
Lily.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. That was me.
And the realization, like, oh yeah, but this person has existed for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, and as much, and the character is super cool, and like how the lightsaber are clipped are meant to like feel like drawing a katana is cool, but like, yeah, there's just not enough. So the question is, what needs to be changed or added, and what needs to be taken away? What's been wrong? What do you guys think?
Well, I think I touched on this a little bit in our previous discussion. It's just like you need characters to have depth and story behind what they represent. Like, we were talking about having a black actor playing an alien in the background. Like, come on, that's not anything, So just kind of like writing their culture or writing that like fictional culture around something that's derivative of their own culture where they come from would be a start in terms of like a positive change for representation, because just having those characters on screen isn't enough. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a good start, but like I would love, just as an example, I would love to see Rose's, home world and their culture on Hayes, and the kind of like history and mythology behind Haysian Smelt. Yeah, and then that would be a good change to start. And what would I guess introduce into lore things on Coruscant that lend to ethnicities. Simple as that, really.
I was gonna add on quickly too, of like your point with the writing and the stories is like, I think the first thing that they need to do is hire more people of color to write their stories in the Star Wars universe and really focus a lot of their time and energies into that. Kind of like, it'd be so cool if there was like a Black Panther or a Shang-Chi movie of Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Like that would be so epic. Too, especially like because it's not super unrealistic. Like they like people too. Like is it Brooke B. Dazzler's video too? It's like oh, why are they leaning on like Japanese culture and anime for Star Wars? It's just like they pulled a lot of most of the Jedi culture from Asian countries. So why aren't they in the writing rooms? Why aren't their stories being told? Well, like heavily using their culture as inspiration, as the nicest way to say it too. It's like, but that like, and then beyond that too, it's just like we're getting better at seeing different looking people on the screen too. But there's also a ways to go for like queer and trans and non-binary representation, because I know High Republic has a lot of characters and they're getting really good at that. Not High Republic, yeah, it's High Republic, the new stuff that's coming out. But yeah. I'm like oh, I got excited. Even in Squadrons, like, oh, we have a non-binary character and they're not just a robot. Exciting. So we need to continue that, because like everyone, like so many non-binary people I knew, they're like, oh my god, I'm in Star Wars and I'm not a robot. I'm like, it's exciting, but like to be able to tell those stories effectively, you need people in the writing room. Honestly, that's the only stuff.
It just like reminds me of like the argument of there's no race in space, and I'm like, so there's no two genders in space either.
Yeah.
Oh, but they're
so
in your perfect vacuum of fantasy, there's only two.
Straight. Oh man.
Yeah, I couldn't. Like, what's funny is I tried to be really cheeky with someone saying that in my comments, and then they were like, yeah, and I was like, no, I don't think you understood what I said.
They never do.
Yeah. Obviously we have visions now, right? And we're like, me and Victoria are going to talk about tomorrow on our podcast about how that's just like all Asian influence. It's just strict Asian influence, and a lot of most notable one is like the duel, right? It's like Japanese like period piece kind of fighting, and it's really cool to see. All of them like inherently have like they have Asian influence because they come from studios that are making anime in Japan, and that's cool to see. And it's kind of been upsetting to kind of see the reception of people just being like, well, this isn't really Star Wars. This is just like this isn't
they always
canon.
find like the most paper thin reasons to be like, that's
not Star Wars. And it kind of sucks, because I really was hoping like this was gonna be like canon. Like a part of me wanted to be like, yeah, this is real, this is it. I don't care how ridiculous it is. This can exist in the universe, and like I get like it not being canon. At least I don't know if that's true anymore. I've had numerous people say like it is canon. It's not canon. It's not confirmed canon.
It's
It doesn't
not.
really matter. Yeah, well, it's one of those things that's like people are way too excited that like this isn't canon. It doesn't need like we don't need Asian things in our universe. I'm so happy about that. It's like
There's
such a
just an
weird.
alternate reality.
Yeah, it's like such a weird thing. It's like
Yeah.
I'm like excited because yeah, you can do all this weird stuff. That's pretty exciting. It's like no, I just don't want Asian things in my universe. And it's like that's weird, man. I don't know about that. That was a weird thing you're saying.
Scheming First Roger said George Lucas made it no secret he pulled from Kurosawa films. It's only fair that Japan and anime adapt Star Wars, and I'll go even further than that. In what is it, the Empire of Dreams documentary, he mentions either that or another documentary. He mentions he thought he was going to have to buy the rights to Hidden
Yeah.
Fortress because the movies were so similar.
Yeah.
Like that's not inspired by, that's plagiarism if you have to
Yeah,
worry
yeah.
about that.
I mean, even The Last Jedi, took some Rashomon.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, films in general have taken from Rashomon the whole like unreliable narrator, flashback story thing
Mhm.
motif. And then we have Lone Wolf and Cub with Mandalorian. Japanese culture is everywhere. Vader's kabuto, his helmet, it's everywhere.
Mhm.
And those people who are saying that, like, Star Wars isn't Japanese, they're the ones that know the least about Star Wars, and it frustrates me.
It's not a fun time.
Doesn't fit the idea in their head.
Yeah.
They're the same people that will say the only Star Wars that matters is George Lucas' Star Wars, and then you show them George Lucas saying something, and then they're like, "Well, that's just his personal feelings." I'm like, "What
And
are you?
You can't
how-
keep
Yeah.
reusing the
how
same
far does
clips.
this reach?
You can just like pull things you like and then be like, yeah, this is what Star Wars is. It's like, no, it's kind of like all Star Wars.
Yeah. I mean, it's okay. So this is gonna be a hot take from me that I have not expressed to anyone before. So, but I feel like this is the place to do it. Sometimes the critique of Anakin's fall feels borderline racist to me, and I say that because the Jedi are so heavily influenced by Asian culture. Like, so if you look at their beliefs, a lot of it is based in like Buddhism and Taoism, and like they follow like samurai code. And I feel like a lot of the complaint was like, well, if Anakin was raised like Westerners were, he'd be
gosh.
good. That's how some of it feels to me. I don't know. Is that crazy?
I can see it.
I can see that. Yeah, it's definitely like a different kind of like relating to my own lifestyle growing up. I guess I can kind of see that comparison where you think like, oh, well, if he was raised correctly, like maybe he wouldn't be a bad person. It's
I
like,
mean,
oh,
let's
that's-
think about the two people that are responsible that most people point to is responsible for his downfall: a green Martian and a black guy.
Yeah.
If he was, if his masters were white, he would. I mean, I'm just like, it's a hot take.
I don't. I'm just always sometimes I feel oh, he was taught that you shouldn't focus on attachments,
Right.
and that's wrong. And you're like, well, but is it? I don't know. Like, there's a lot of cultures that don't believe happiness comes from the things you're attached to.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't know.
but also to that fact, like the people that they blame is the green Martian and a black guy, and the one that they don't see, the manipulator, is the white guy.
Mhm,
And they don't
Yeah.
never
And
talk
they don't
about
see
him.
and they don't talk about.
Ever. I don't
Okay.
know. I don't know. That's weird. Maybe that's too far. I don't know. But yeah, do you guys have any other thoughts on what what else might need to change? I love Here's the question. Here's a question I didn't add. Um, do you guys want to see? Let me preface this with a little story, because I want to be as sensitive as possible. But one of the characters from any media that struck me was Cisco Ramon on The Flash, because Cisco is Mexican, um, but that's just what he is. That's a part of his identity, and that's how he grew up, and that's ingrained in him. But that's not what he is to them. He is not the Mexican guy on the team. So when you have episodes where his brother comes in and they speak Spanish to each other, and he and the food and references to his family and all that stuff, but that's not he's not there to be a stereotype. And so I'm curious, like, where is that line between being the stereotype or having a character or having a character that is not written to be anything and you just put a person of color in there? Where is that line? Do you guys track with what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Victoria.
I was going to say, I find the telltale signs of those differences is in those little subtleties. Like your example, I haven't seen The Flash, but if his brother comes to town and they're speaking Spanish to each other, yeah, that makes sense. Like, they go over to their family's house, they're not having spaghetti and meatballs. Like,
Yeah.
like, it's those little details and maybe the way they talk or like pet names they call their family and stuff. Like, it's those very fine little details that, like, if somebody was just Googling, oh, what is an Asian person like at home, like, they wouldn't get.
Right.
Like, if you're like a lot of Asian culture, a lot of Chinese people that, like, friends and stuff I know, yeah, they have a basket of slippers in the front of the house that guests can take, and they wear that in the house. So, like, seeing Shang-Chi taking off his shoes before going to Katie's family's house is like those little things where it's just like, okay, like, they are Asian or they're Chinese or they're whatever. And, like, okay, Shang-Chi, yeah, it's about, like, Chinese culture. It is pretty heavy into that. But if you put, like, Katie and Shang-Chi and they were just when they were hanging out with their friends or whatever in the bar, it's like, it's not like the flashy things, like no Asian streaks in their hair. They're just like, but it's the little details that make the difference.
Yeah.
Oh man, every time I dye my hair, I'm just like, am I becoming a stereotype?
I mean,
I didn't even think about that, and then, like, I just flashed to like 1,000 different mediums where there's an Asian person with a streak in their
They always
hair.
got a streak of color.
You can't see their hair, right? So we can't animate it well. We have to show that they're edgy and they're not submissive. It's like, oh my god. They only know one way to do that. Cool.
there's a fine line between someone's identity being just in universe versus someone's identity being satirical. Like, something you point out, like, oh, why did you take off your shoes? And, like, they have to, like, make a reference to it, like, and acknowledge it. Whereas
it goes unsaid.
Yeah, whereas if, like, Cisco is speaking Spanish to his brother, it makes sense. It's fine. But if, like, that became a satire for that episode where, like, I don't know, someone is like, oh, why are you speaking? I don't understand Spanish or something, like, just making light of that situation. It's a very fine line, but I think, like, if you can incorporate their experience and their identity into the universe just as it normally is existing, then there shouldn't be a problem.
Without pointing it out, saying, like, hey, check it out. We're, like, they're brothers and they're both Spanish and they speak Spanish to each other, right? Get it? It's like, you don't need to do that, like, because
as long as the script isn't poking you in the ribs with its elbow, I got you. Like,
that does boil down to, like, people writing the proper content, right? Like, the only person who would know that are people from that culture. And I think what you asked is, like, what that fine line is that, like, well, both kind of need to be implemented, like taking someone of a different ethnicity and then dropping him in a place where that might not be so relevant, but also having characters that is relevant. Growing up as, like, a mixed person, right? I grew up in a Filipino household. with my Filipino grandparents, but they were very focused on assimilating to American culture, which caused me like to associate myself with other Filipino people as not being Filipino enough, and that sucks. That hurts a lot. So it's like I look at characters that like I see a lot of Latino representation, and people say like, "Oh, that's not good Latino representation because they don't even talk about being Spanish. They don't talk about being Latino. They don't talk about being Asian." I think it's fair to have those people just be dropped in. It's like, well, why can't they be Asian? They don't always have to embrace that culture, because then you do fall into that like, oh, this might be too much of a stereotype. But with that, you can't just have that and then not accompany it with having embracing of different cultures. Because there are people who feel like me, who feel neglected and feel like, oh, maybe I'm not Asian enough to talk about this. Maybe I'm not Asian enough to really speak about it. And I don't want, like, when I have kids, I don't want them to feel that way. When, you know, there's mixed kids all over the United States who feel that way. United States is a giant melting pot. Canada's a giant melting pot. And it's like, there's going to be people who feel that way, where it's like, they're not going to be Asian enough. They're not going to be Latino enough. They're not going to be anything enough.
Me too.
Yeah, exactly. So
not white
it's,
enough and not Asian enough. It's like
yeah.
weird.
And we want to resonate with those characters that look like us, but that might struggle to find their identity in their culture, and that's something I like to see.
And that's why with Shang-Chi, I appreciated having Katie there as well.
Yes, I was
Yeah,
gonna
Katie's,
say.
like, a great
I'm
one,
just like,
yeah.
the moment she couldn't really pronounce her Chinese name properly, I'm like, girl, same.
Yeah.
I know it. I won't speak it aloud because I know I'm saying it wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not confident in that. And growing up in like that very Asian American, but focus on trying to be like American or Canadian or whatever, it's like, because frankly, my dad had a lot of pain when he grew up in Hong Kong. Like,
Yeah.
he didn't come, like, I know a lot of people too, like, also international students that I know and I'm friends with, and like sometimes they speak about like, oh yeah, like we came to Canada to prosper. Be like, my family got sponsored by an Anglican church. We're not an Anglican, but an Anglican church to come to Canada to have a chance at a better existence. So he rejected, like, I didn't go to Chinese school, I didn't do this, I didn't do that, like I can't speak Cantonese is what my family spoke and stuff like that. It's just like there's such a focus on leaving that identity behind. So it's like that feeling of enough, and having characters like Katie, where it's like even her like small little things too. It's just like not just like, oh, perfect Mandarin, here's my new Chinese name. It's just like that too.
Yeah, I love, you know, it being a melting pot and having so many different stories. You know, that concept of, you know, maybe your dad comes and wants to get rid of that because he's trying to assimilate, but you can't ever properly assimilate because
I look different.
you know.
It's
I mean, and that's
I've. Oh, sorry. Not to make it about me, but I've had a very similar experience. The area I grew up in, from kindergarten through high school, I've never been at a school that had more than 6 black people at one time. And, you know, I had to every day answer if I was related to, is that your brother? Like, is that, no, none of them are, I'm not related to any of them. Stop it.
Bro, grade school, I was the second Asian.
Ooh.
And the other Asian was Filipino, so we were automatically brothers.
Yeah, we had like 3 or 4 in elementary school, a little bit more in high school, and then I changed high schools and I went to a bigger city. I'm like, oh my god, a mixed person. But I got grouped in with the Asians, and like one of my last names, it's not hard to pronounce, same last name as one of my other classmates. They'd always say my name wrong, but mine always came first in the alphabetical order, so they learned how to say his name. But I'm just like, come on. Like, but then we'd have Asian days, and I was just like, okay, like, this is cool. Like, we'd all hang out together here or there, and I never felt Asian enough, because I would always say, I'm like, oh, we're like 4.5. But it's like, I don't know. It's weird. It's
Right.
Yeah.
really weird.
I'll go on record saying Danny Rand needs to be mixed. I think he should be half
I think
Asian.
that would be a good call. Yeah.
I think that the purpose of him being
Daniel
I agree. No, the purpose of him being blonde hair and blue eyes is to show it's a fish out of water story. But you very much have that within the same community. That's what you saw with Katie, and I know I would love to see that myself.
That's the importance of having writers that can kind of shed light on those experiences, because like I said before, there's not one Asian experience and there's not one Asian American or Asian Canadian experience. They're all different in some way, shape, or form. So like having one person kind of like give like a gestalt of any experience that is reminiscent of what we experience is a good thing.
Yeah, and that kind of goes hand in hand with Cal's comment. It says, I feel like they should have people on the writing staff, on the writing teams, and on that set that know and live these things rather than needing them to rely on Google.
Yeah.
And I just want to find the person that, because you know it's happened at some point where they're like, how to be Asian.
Oh man.
All right. Let's take some notes. Like, put that.
I think what to answer the question, like what they should do more of, it's like, yeah, do include those writers to really not just like Asian people, but just like all cultures, right? And in the world of Star Wars, right, there are different worlds that borrow from different cultures. We can definitely explore those cultures through different alien species. They can be human looking. It doesn't matter. The range of what Star Wars has to offer is there. And like Disney and Lucas Films can't back down from that. That's what's upsetting with the whole Rose situation, is that they bent backwards for it because of the reception was so bad, and they were like, okay, we're just not going to do this. They shafted Rose's story, they shafted
Finn's story,
they shafted Poe Dameron's story, all of them, like all of the characters that were of different backgrounds were just shafted, and it sucked to see. Like, it was so disappointing. So yeah, there needs to be an effort to do that stuff. They also just need to hold their ground doing it, because what's the point of even trying if you're just gonna give up anyway from one sign of heat? It's
Yeah.
just disappointing to see. Yeah. So.
I mean, they replaced her with a slug who by all means can't be an engineer. I love Clyde. Don't get me wrong, but he doesn't have hands. So,
That you know of.
that I know of. Oh no.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry. That's nightmare fuel.
Star Wars book 2nd edition.
Ooh.
Somebody don't drop that.
Move forward. Do you have a fan cast for a project or a concept that you'd like to bring into the universe? Like you have the green stamp. What would you do for me? Daniel Day Kim live action Revan. I think he would kill it.
I saw that. Yeah, that's cool.
I think he looks the part. And Revan is a self-insert character, but seeing his quality of acting, and also he just looks like Revan to me. Like, he just feels like Revan to me. I don't know.
I'll add on top of that, opposite Gemma Chan as Bastila Shan.
I mean, I'll put Jimmy Chan in anything. It's yeah, for sure.
I originally cast her as Satele, but I would like her as Bastila, and then Satele. I have to find my fan cast to make that work. But I like it more in the context of Daniel Day Kim as Revan, opposite Bastila. That would be incredible to see.
What about Karen Fukuhara?
I have to look that up.
She was the voice of F in Visions, but she was in The Boys. She was in.
Oh, I remember her.
I can't.
Suicide Squad as Katana.
Okay.
I think she's got martial arts chops and stuff too. But yeah, what do you guys think? Is there any fan cast or any projects you would like create for better representation?
I think go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, you know, I'm kind of really trash at actors and fan casts and stuff, but
No
I'd really
worries.
love a story around the same time, like kind of because we're kind of leading into it with the Mandalorian and seeing Grogu at like Luke's training and stuff. So like, it'd be cool to see a group of those younglings really, and have them all different ages because Luke is just finding them throughout the galaxy, really. But I think that'd be a really cool story to tell alongside like a little, even like having Ben Solo just be a little cameo at the end, be like, oh, he was just one of those kids. Like, there's nothing super special there. Like, and it's just like
It's sad when you think about it, though. It's
I,
like,
I,
oh,
I
like,
mean, yeah, no, but like I mean, he didn't have a great time.
yeah.
Training with his Uncle Luke, he missed his family and felt alone. But I
Um,
think it would be interesting to see a group of young Force users and kind of see where they like went or what happened. Or it's kind of a sad story, like kind of like a Rogue One kind of ending, probably. But it's I think that'd be very interesting, and you could get a lot of young actors and actresses too, because I think that could be like really cool for like kids to see too. Be like, oh, they're actually
Oh.
kids too.
I love that. Where I mean, because we haven't seen anything that truly follows people through becoming a Jedi. Like you just
We
kind of
only have-
gloss over that part.
Like Anakin jumped from Phantom Menace like onwards, huge age gap. It's just like, oh, this happened. Okay, he's older now. And he's just like, oh, there was younglings there, but killed them. But we don't really have too many like kids. I guess Ahsoka.
Yeah,
She's still
but
a Padawan.
even
She wasn't, like,
Ahsoka
a
starts
youngling.
as a Padawan. I would love it.
Yeah.
A Harry Potter esque where we watch the journey of learning these things and what they actually train for.
Get the kyber crystals and all that stuff. It'd be adorable, but also like something for kids really to look up to. Kind of like in a Harry Potter sort of way.
I would want to see a like right after episode 3, or no, is it 3? Yeah, right after episode 3 between episode 4, where Jedi are on the run and they basically have to like hide who they are. I feel like every time we got like a Jedi that showed up, everyone was like real hush hush about it, or like it wasn't as like monumental. But I feel like there was a period of time where like people were hunting Jedi if they were still alive. I think that'd be like a cool opportunity to explore, like what happened to because we see Anakin unfortunately take care of all the younglings, right? But there were Padawans out there that were still like like they were still just starting their training, like they just started going out in the field. And I asked, like, well, what happened to them? Like, did they all also go? Like, I know there's a couple that are in Legends that did survive. There's a couple, I think, in universe that did survive. But to see that on screen, I think would be really exciting. Again, I'm also like really terrible at fan cast. But Marvel and Star Wars are not uncommon to sharing actors. I would want to see Simu Liu there. I think that would be pretty fun as like a young Jedi who just like lost his master and like has no idea what to do. Kind of just like goes rogue and like tries to find life not being a Jedi anymore. I think that would be like kind of fun. But also like a prequel to the sequels, and it's finding out like how Poe became Poe, how I guess Finn's continuation story. I feel like we're owed. I want to know what happens to Finn. There's so many questions
Agreed.
I have about Finn.
I want to see him train.
Yeah, like we didn't even get confirmation what he was gonna tell. Well, I guess we did. I'm not sure. I haven't like really delved into like the details of that, but like he was gonna tell Rey something, and we never knew what it was. At least in that movie.
I think you only get in the book.
Yeah, but see, like I want that information massively available through films and what people are watching. There's a certain number of audiences that won't be exposed to that. Like I want kids to enjoy it, right? Like, hey kid, you got to read this 30 chapter book to understand the intricacies of what Finn's going through. I don't think that's as appealing as like no, I just want to watch a movie where there's like light swords and beams. Because I feel like those should be easily accessible. yeah, like a continuation of Finn's story is definitely needed, and then we need justice for Rose. Like she just got shafted, man. Like it's not fun. It was really not a fun time to see that happen.
And they were so excited about the
It was
scenes
so exciting.
between her and Ray. They were so excited,
Mhm.
and they were all cut out.
Yeah,
They were
I-
like, because like you shouldn't have to read the books to get this information.
Yeah,
Like they
exactly.
were friends. They were on like wherever the base was. It's like they were there for like a year
Mhm.
being
Oh,
friends.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Too, because like, but also like the Cobalt Squadron book, like that about Rose and her sister Paige. Like, I feel like that could be adapted pretty well into a
Mhm.
film. Like, you get like a
Mhm.
story of family and helping like these other planets that are going through these rough times, and it's not really about Force users at all. Like,
yeah. That book
I
is
looked at it again.
underrated.
so good.
I looked at it again.
It's short too. It's easy.
either Bastila or Satele, with Gemma Chan or Elodie Young.
No, you can't have her.
I will have her.
No, Elodie
Yes.
Young is my Lorna D from the High Republic. So
I mean, put Leku on her and she's unrecognizable. She can play
Yeah.
two different things.
hey, find a girl that can do both. Cal 4 in the chat with $9.99. We appreciate you, Cal. He's become a good friend. Found him actually here in the chat
Oh, cool.
on one of the podcasts, so we've become good friends. So he's Cal's the best. X-Core Gamer Skills says he wants Jet Li as Stellan or Comac. That could be interesting. Cal 4, wants a Chariot or Bay's origin show. And they actually just adapted the short book. There was a short book about them. They recently adapted it into a comic. I bought it. Haven't read it yet.
Oh. I know they're releasing a Star Wars duel, like based on Star Wars Visions.
Yeah, Ronin.
Ronin, yeah.
Yeah.
That one, I'm gonna pick that one up. I don't read a lot of Star Wars literature, but I'm definitely gonna pick that up. That one seems really interesting.
I like Henry's suggestion with Shay Mitchell. I would love to see that. Wouldn't we love to see that?
Yep, I said Shay Mitchell in the New Republic era as a Jedi Padawan under, New Republic era under Luke would be a perfect casting, and I even had to because I couldn't place that, so I looked it up and I'm like, yep, I would love to see that.
Where do you guys think Star Wars is going now? Because like we got like things like The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, but like I kind of want to see a continuation, of like where we're gonna go after this whole like Skywalker saga.
Yeah, it seems like everything's been kind of stuck before that.
Yeah.
Like they've been kind of scared to touch
Yeah.
what comes next in those characters
I
because
want
it's
Star Wars.
Wouldn't
Star-
you be?
Skywalker? I guess, but also that's what I'm also saying is like they should make a decision. They should hold to it. Like it's.
I mean,
I
it
want-
kind of makes sense. Like in the old, before Disney, like the blank slates, it's really tough to do stories after Anakin because we always get those like, oh, but his sacrifice, and it's true because if you hold to the prophecy to be quite literal, then any conflict after his sacrifice breaks it. So. It is a scary kind of endeavor to undertake, is to write something that's worthwhile that's after Anakin, and people aren't like, oh, but it's ultimate balance. Nothing ever happens ever again.
It's like there
So-
can be conflict when
Yeah, there
there's
can be
balance in the Force. It's not
Yeah,
exactly.
okay. The universe is better. There's nothing going on. There's no slavery anymore. It's all good. The
Well,
day
people are.
it's like
But George Lucas had his seat, and you're like, yeah, and the Sith came back, and that
even
one
just
too.
reading
So
bloodlines too, like about like
Yeah.
Leia and like trying to get like the government back up and running took years, and it wasn't that successful always. And it was like there's a lot of ways to go for the universe, Star Wars.
There's
universe.
just like so much potential, and I think like Visions really shows that. Like, my favorite episode out of that one is the twins, even though it's like so crazy out there. Classic Studio Trigger.
Yeah.
But
yeah, we
I
watched
assume
Promare
you-
first.
I assume you've seen the Kill la Kill as well.
no, I've seen all of their productions, all the way back until they were Studio Gainax, making
Oh,
Fully
yeah.
Cooley. They're my favorite anime studio. But like, regardless of their logic and how they outweigh it with style, I think it was really interesting to just see that, like, what's his name, Kare, like he switched, like he didn't. I don't know if he like switched to the side of the light. I just think like he was motivated by love to like save his sister, right? And he uses Force Lightning, which is iconically like a Dark Force user's like attack. So it's like it kind of like blurs the line of like, is it? It's right what he's doing, but in line with like what a Jedi ideology is, it's wrong what he's doing. And he's able to access those powers of like the dark side, which I think is just like really interesting. Like, because he's all of his motivation is for love and passion, which are characteristics of the dark side. And knowing that there can be that kind of range in the story of Star Wars, I think is really exciting. Will we ever explore stuff like that outside of like Visions? I don't know. It gets
It's an interesting conversation to have about the twins, particularly because they never said he was a Jedi, right? They're both
Yeah.
born of the dark side, and his very motive to act is very selfish,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So I mean, granted, it like lines up with like the better outcome for the
Mhm.
two, but he still wants to save his sister from doom,
Mhm.
and that still very much lines up with him still being dark side. So it could potentially just be a matter of like stylistic choice in terms of their colors of their lightsabers, and he's still a
Mhm.
dark sider. So,
Right.
My favorite detail in all of that whole thing, because I was like, man, they're playing fast and loose with some stuff, and then when the droid flies up and catches her, and the droid has an oxygen. I was like, okay, I got you. They're like, yeah, no, we know what you're thinking. We did it on purpose,
Mhm.
and we're laughing at you.
It's just my appreciation for triggers that they know that they don't have to make sense because they just bring so much style and coolness to it. They outweigh making
They're
sense.
having fun with Star Wars.
Yeah, and
which
that's
is what
that's
people
so
should
fun.
have. Like,
Yeah.
so much of Star Wars, like that's why I've stepped back from like posting a lot of Star Wars content, because like people get so wrapped up in the nitty gritty. It's just like they're not having fun with it.
Mhm.
It should
Yeah.
be fun. You
It
should
be
enjoy
fun.
it. If you like
That's
Star
like
Wars,
the
you
funnest
should
episode. I love that episode.
enjoy Star Wars.
I'm the
At least a little bit.
definition of wrapped up in the nitty gritty, and I have fun with it. Like you can,
Yeah.
you
Because
both.
a lot of times you're just like, oh my
both
god,
can
these
exist.
people.
I mean, in Promare, they produce a giant mech at the last moment, and its name
Dude, fucking- love that. Oh my
Deus
God.
Ex Machina,
love
and it was
Promare.
like, okay, yeah, yep, yeah, yes, thank you. Brown with a Breeze says, I love how he had an X-wing, and you're like, yeah, they should have known he'd be an X-wing on board.
I
It's just-
truly
And started
believe-
dressing like Han Solo underneath his clothes.
believe that they ruined this whole series to not be canon because they brought back like their storyboards or whatever, and Disney was like, "Yeah, we can't have this. This cannot exist in canon. This is impossible. We're not gonna have him ride an X-wing doing the Holdo maneuver in space without a mask. It's not saying it ain't gonna exist. This ain't gonna fly." And then he goes
What's-
through hyperspace.
it's like and the
Lightsabers.
lightsaber was like a spirit bomb lightsaber, right? It only hit
Yeah,
harm.
yeah, it like extended and
danger.
like did different things. It was like, oh man,
It
that's
won't
cool.
harm you if you're pure.
It was the most anime thing ever, and it's just amazing. I love anime so much. Nick, we gotta talk about more stuff, man.
Honestly,
but-
I don't watch a lot of anime. I watch like maybe 2 or 3 a year.
This guy says he doesn't watch much anime, but he's familiar with Gainax.
See, I don't watch a lot of
Cooley,
anime.
cooley.
I just don't. I don't know. Didn't grow up with it. I appreciate it, but
Yeah,
Saw Neon Genesis.
you
saw,
know some stuff, Nick.
yeah.
Saw
I
Gurren.
guess it was all Adult Swim that would just contributed to that, and then there was a period of my life, I watched it like religiously, and then I think in like recent years, it's just being an adult. Like I can't like draw and watch anime at the same time. At least
True.
not at the time where anime was like on the uprise. Because a lot of it was just subbed, and it's like I can't watch and draw at the same time. This isn't gonna work. So I had to like fully commit to like watching anime. Now it's like dub the next. What is it like? Dub a week later, or dub like a like the next day. My Hero Academia does it like very very quickly. So that's like more accessible to me, which is I can watch and draw at the same time and understand what's going on.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And for anyone not following Nick, he does a lot of awesome content. Every now and then we get a sneak peek at a drawing, and it's always really good. So
Read Radiant Black. That's
yes.
Oh,
Okay,
you also
so
drew our podcast avatars. They're so
Oh, yeah.
good.
They're so
They're
good.
Thank
I
you,
use
guys.
them as stickers on everything. I love it.
Oh.
Because I logged in for you guys' first episode or first
was
live
on there.
episode,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, "How does this look so good already?" Like I looked,
Nick.
the high ground looked like trash.
All I did
for
was vectorize the
months.
logo. It was all,
No,
all
but
him.
Victoria did an amazing job on the logo. Like when I saw it, it was a stunning logo, and I was like, "This is fucking sick," and it's a great way to start. Which, by the way, we will be live self plug-in. Sorry, for
Tomorrow.
tomorrow.
I encourage it.
Yeah,
Real quick, X-Core Gamer Skills says Adult Swim responsible for 2 of my favorite anime, Bebop and Trigun.
I love Bebop, man.
Except for the Bebop show. I haven't watched it, but the
I like
set
the intro
photos
that
are.
they
The intro is
released.
good. The intro reminded me a lot of Speed Racer.
But
Yeah, go ahead.
so that intro tank was my ringtone for years until my roommate was watching Bebop, and every time he'd watch it and get to a new episode, I think my phone was ringing, and I was like, all right, I gotta
Did
change
you
it.
you
But-
saw the live action intro?
Oh
that
yeah,
they-
yeah. I'm excited. Also saw the online reactions to Faye's outfit, and you're like, a human can't wear that.
Yeah, it's impossible. That's not possible. It's not humanly possible. But it's also not practical. It's doing all the things that Faye does.
It's gross.
Yeah, like back to Star Wars. Yeah,
What
me-
it's sounding like is we need to bring y'all on for an anime
Oh,
episode.
yeah. definitely. Yeah,
Yes.
so am I.
Would be honored.
Yeah. Yeah, me
Definitely.
and Victoria will go along with our other 2 co-hosts, Johnny and Liba. We'll be going live tomorrow, 6:30, twitch.tv/Voices of Atlas.
Yes.
Did it. Yes.
Nice.
First
We're
try.
also on Instagram and Twitter
Yes.
to find us, so you can see all
Awesome.
the updates and posts and stuff there.
So you guys heard it. Voices of Atlas. Please check them out. Follow them on Twitch. I will leave all the stuff in the description for future generations to find. You guys also do you post the audio
We're on
other
Spotify.
platforms?
Yeah.
On Spotify.
And
We're on
I think
Spotify right now.
Anchor. We're posting it through Anchor, so
Yeah.
anywhere they
We're working
upload
through.
it.
It's a lot to get podcast places, which I've found.
It's
Um,
irritating because
yeah,
everyone
it
has
is.
a very different thing to do, and then yeah.
Trying to get on
Yeah.
Apple, and I did not know that was like a paid service.
Oh, I'm on that. Dyad is on Apple. I don't think you have to pay for it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this is on Apple, but I pay for Podbean, which
Yeah.
Oh, got it.
put it on Apple through. So
Mm.
I don't know.
we're
I
on
don't know.
Spotify.
We'll figure it out.
it
We're all
Shout-
figuring it out.
Shout out
It's a
to
learning experience.
Dat Boy Steve says Bleach is top 3. Yes, listen, if you read the manga, it's one of the best manga like of all time. Hands down.
I will have to trust you on that because my list is far too long. Going back to Star Wars, and we're getting ready to close out, and so thank you guys for plugging that in. Feel free to plug it again or any future projects or things you're currently working on. Yeah, do you have any closing thoughts on representation in Star Wars? Anything that you wish that the public or people in general could know, just get through their thick heads, um, or and just see someone else's perspective. So yeah, any closing thoughts, and once again where we can find you and your amazing content. Um, because Pep and I do Diet in the Force, I'm going to start with him, so it doesn't sound like I'm just trying to plug myself later.
Final thoughts. I think the only kind of idea that I want to leave everyone is that just we need more representation, and that's not a bad thing. Stop complaining.
Mhm.
I don't know how many hundreds of years I don't know how long movies and TV have been a thing, but like for however long that has been, you've had your stuff.
Mhm.
Now, if you see an Asian on screen, don't panic. That's a good thing for us, and it makes us feel better, makes us feel like we exist. And if your go-to argument is that like ethnicities don't exist in space, I mean, I will just say Jedi and Sith don't exist in space. Nothing exists in space, really. Space is a vacuum of nothing. So just take notes on, the fiction that you knew and the fiction that you grew up with. It's all derivative of the world around you, and make those analogs as you will. And of course, you can find me on TikTok at _element7 youtube.com/element7s. And you can find Chaco and I on Diet in the Force, Saturdays at 5 p.m. PST. This week, we'll be talking about, I don't know, but we'll be talking about something. Maybe hanging out with the chat.
Yeah. So if you're coming here with that energy, you will be dunked on by Pep, or by me, or by Pep and then me, or the other way around, or Shayla Ren, or there's a lot of people. You might get dunked on if you come in here with a bad faith. So
don't come at Shayla Ren with that kind of energy next to a vending machine. Let me say that.
Oh, okay. Very specific.
And how about you, Victoria?
Yes. You know what? I'll leave it. I was gonna leave it on a similar note to you, Pep, but it's not always about you.
Yeah.
Like, if you're complaining about forest diversity, it's not for you. It's not about you, and not everything has to be about you. That being said, it's important for a lot of people to see ourselves because we don't get that. And even if it's not for me, it's for the generations and generations to follow. It's just important. It's who we are, and if we don't see ourselves, then apparently we don't matter, and that's not the case, and that's definitely not the case. But yeah, I'm also down to dunk on people.
I love
if they
dunking
bring some of that energy, and you won't get like the little recognition you deserve. I won't reply directly to your comment. You will be deleted, blocked, and then a little screenshot with your name blocked out, so nobody actually knows who you are, and you don't get any attention from me. Not specifically, but you can find me on TikTok. I'm at Victoria Organa on there, on Instagram, and on Twitter. There's an underscore in between. And again, with Nick, I'm sure he'll plug the Voices of Atlas podcast, but that's something we've been loving. And join us tomorrow if you want to talk about Star Wars Visions, because it should be a good time.
Awesome. I love it. And I love not giving them the time of day, because that's what they want. They want the
reaction. They want the hate or anger. They feel like they got under my skin. It's just like, God, you don't even exist in my mind space. But I will call you out for being a little bit shitty.
What was that line? It's like, I don't think about you at all.
Yeah.
How about you, Nick?
Hi, I'm Nick. Oh, we're leaving now. But where you guys diverge, I do definitely call people out all the time. It's definitely something I'm known for on my TikTok, which you can find me at amazing
Red Flags.
Mackenzie. Red Flags.
Great
I've been loving doing that. That's been just a big fun time for me. But yeah, you can find me on TikTok, Amazing Nikendry. My Twitter and Instagram page where I post a lot of my art is going to be Super Nikendry. The Kendra is just the name that I operate on, basically, always. Um,
I
yeah,
thought it
if I
was
can,
Nick Anger this whole time.
That
it's
was
a
my
reference.
original thought, but
Yeah.
he's a little bit angry.
Yeah,
Those bigots.
it kind of is like on brand, but it's a throwback, or like it's an homage to like Super Sentai. You know, they always have Gokaiger, Zuenger, something like that. But like if I could leave like saying one thing, it's like don't be afraid to have these conversations with people. That's the biggest thing. I feel like it's one thing to want something, and then it's one thing to speak about it. There's going to be resilience. There's going to be people that tell you to shut up. I don't stand for that. I don't like shutting up. Obviously, my biggest talent is never stop talking. So I don't stand for people telling me like, you know, keep your voice down. What you're saying isn't. You're the only one saying this. It's not true. If I were the only one saying this, people wouldn't agree with me. People wouldn't understand where I'm coming from. Don't be afraid to have those conversations. Because again, like companies, billion-dollar companies are going to make these decisions, but if we don't talk about it with other people, what's the point of the change? What's the point of having this media if we don't get to have that conversation? So don't be afraid to have those conversations. But yeah, you can catch us live. We talk about topics like this on our podcast, which will be going live again tomorrow, Voices of Atlas, where we talk about the media and pop culture that we love. Myself, host Victoria, along with Johnny and Liba, we talk about the pop culture we love and how our backgrounds and our upbringings both are intertwined with you know, pop culture and all the things that we consume. Because you know, Asian voices have not been heard for a long time, and like with Shang-Chi and like the evolution of Star Wars, we want to bring that to the forefront, and not just Asian voices, but other people of color, other different backgrounds, because it's important, because we want to have those conversations, because it's really important. But yeah, that's all.
If it was only one person saying this stuff, we would still have Mickey Rooney playing Asians on screen.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I shouldn't laugh. That was horrible. Also, shout out to the marvelous Johnny. Follow him on TikTok. And what's
Liba.
Anxious.
Yeah, mixed and anxious.
Mixed and Anxious.
Yes.
So check them out as well as their podcast on Twitch. I'll be there in chat tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
Also, just to I know I use this analogy a lot, but like, imagine, you know, if you're right-handed, like the world is just regular. But imagine if you're left-handed and the desk that you sat in elementary school wasn't comfortable because it didn't support your arm, because it sweeps the right arm. Imagine every notebook you ever bought doesn't work right. You have to write sideways so that you don't smudge your own writing.
I don't imagine I'm actually left-handed.
Yeah, exactly. So imagine you want to learn guitar, but
man.
you can't find a left-handed guitar anywhere. You walk into Guitar Center, you can't touch 99% of anything in there. Imagine your friends want to go play baseball. You don't have a mitt, but no one has a spare mitt that you can use. For all of those people, the world is just regular. But for anyone that's not in that position, the world is awkward and it's difficult. And you are consciously aware of it at all times. Imagine that's your life. Now imagine if you find a left-handed guitar, you find a left-handed mitt, how amazing that would feel for you. Anyone who's right-handed might pick up that left-handed guitar, might pick up those left-handed scissors and be like, this is weird and uncomfortable and I don't like it. But just understand, there's a large population that need that. Now, if you put that over to Asians, they're the majority of the planet. Like, why wouldn't they? You know, that's what representation is for everyone. So again, don't be afraid of the difficult conversation. Don't have your walls automatically come up and feel like I'm not doing anything wrong. Just listen to how they feel, and who knows, it might change your heart. That's all. And that's the purpose of this. So everyone who's here, still here, thank you for sitting in on this episode. This has been enlightening for me. Hope it was for everyone else.
Yeah, it's fun.
I appreciate all of you guys. You are all welcome back. We love you guys here on the high ground, but we'll sign off, and may the force be with you always.
Goodbye.